Aisha, thank you so much for joining us this morning. The results just in general, we would have been expecting a bloodbath, would we not? Specifically in this very vulnerable sector of our labour force. Just your general comments on what the survey has brought to your attention in your position at SweepSouth.
So thanks for having me, Marcel. And yes, we expected the results to be quite bad when we looked at the impact, particularly of the pandemic, on earnings and on living conditions of domestic workers in the country. And that's unfortunately what we saw in the survey. We saw the impact of not being able to work. We saw the impact of domestic workers working for customers, for employers who are also under a lot of financial strain, and the impact that that has had. We saw the impact of increases in living expenses, food, electricity costs going up, school fees going up. And then we also saw the increased strain on these domestic workers, the vast majority of whom are women, as a result of their partners or other family members who would ordinarily be working now not being able to work. So the burden of taking care of the entire family was increased.
And that number was reflected in your finding that workers with 5 financial dependents rose from 12% in 2019 to 17% this year, while those with 6 or more dependents rose from 14 to 20%. That is a massive jump in terms of percentages. And one can only imagine those are percentages we're looking at. What kind of really personal, financial and emotional strain that must have put on both domestic workers and the families that they care for.
Yeah, I think, when you look at those percentages, and this is, taking care of 5, 6 people, this is on a domestic worker's salary, which we need to remember. And then, the strain that people are undergoing when it comes to costs and what they have to take care of. So food costs for family members, including children, those food costs have gone up significantly. Electricity costs having gone up since last year for this group that we surveyed by 33%. School fees going up, I think it was over 60%. So, you're taking care of a big family, costs are going up, but your earning is going down. And so the situation is quite dire.
Now, as we ease into lockdown level 1, in fact, in the earlier levels, one of the first things that one would see transpire is that families were saying, okay, my domestic worker can come back to work now with certain, of course, health provisions and regulations in place. But the repercussion of that lockdown, of not being able to be at work, is going to be with these domestic workers for some time, because many of them would have gone deeper into debt as a result of not earning what they were expecting to earn for those many months. That now opens a completely different can of worms, doesn't it? And something that an organisation like yours, I suppose, will have to be more and more aware of as we start picking up the pieces as a result of this lockdown.
Absolutely. I think what we're trying to do as a result of this survey, as we've done with previous years, is just try and highlight the issues that domestic workers face with earning and living conditions. And I think we're going to have to do that even more so this year, post the release of this survey, is really try to lobby our customers, private employers of domestic workers, government, to try and step in and intervene. And the story is not all negative. I think a lot of people, particularly, obviously South Africans, the survey included South Africans and non-South Africans. South Africans benefited hugely from government grants and increases in support given during the pandemic. So it's not all negative. I think what we're wanting to do is just highlight some of the critical areas where people need support.
And I suppose one does also have to highlight there were many South Africans who continued to pay the salaries of the domestic workers. I know my family certainly made a point of doing that as well, because if you put yourself just in a fellow South African's shoes, if you are able to continue to pay somebody's important salary for the very intimate work that they do for your family, many South Africans did indeed do that. Unfortunately, some did not. Talking about the personal impact of this, your survey also delved into the personal pressures that many domestic workers are under, with 6% of respondents reporting suffering physical or verbal abuse from a spouse or partner during lockdown. Now, this is something we've seen our gender-based violence numbers spike during this lockdown, and that indeed has been felt by our domestic workers as well. What did your survey find there?
Yeah, so we found that there were worryingly high levels, as we know and as you've mentioned, of verbal, physical abuse, of gender-based violence, and and this is going to be exacerbated in a situation where you're locked in a house where tensions are high, your partner's potentially not working, there are issues around those sorts of dynamics within the house, and again, we wanted to highlight this because there are interventions that can be used to help. So as an example, with SweepSouth, we work with an organization called the Warrior Project that makes legal help and assistance and support available for free to anyone who's impacted by gender-based violence. So again, just trying to surface some of these issues that can be exacerbated during a situation like lockdown, the pandemic, where households are under a lot of strain.
Okay, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much. SweepSouth CEO and co-founder Aisha Pando joining us live there via Skype.